we are all too aware, the ongoing crisis in Ukraine continues to prove dire for the region and for the civilians and families who have had their lives uprooted. We've already seen an outpouring of love and support from our generous town of Islip residents, wanting to do something, anything, to provide aid to people who are so affected. At the town, we share this sentiment, this call to humanity to reach out and do whatever we can to help. That is why we have partnered with Saints Peter and Paul Ukrainian Church, Ukrainian Orthodox Church in West Islip. We're encouraging all who are interested in donating to provide first aid kits, bleed stop, and tourniquets, items that will directly meet the needs of the Ukrainian people. Monetary donations, obviously, will also be accepted and can be made payable directly to Saints Peter and Paul Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Starting this Friday, you'll begin to see signs posted around town with information regarding the donation drive, and we've established 2 drop-off locations, one here at Town Hall and one at the West Islip Community Center right down the block from the church at 90 Higby Lane. Our town has a strong history of rising to the challenge to provide aid and support to causes where need was essential, and we're so proud to live among such generous neighbors. Of course, while we look to the community to join us in providing for important aid for important causes, we remain committed to continuing to establish ways to provide relief and support to our residents where help is needed. That is why we are so pleased to share with you that we are currently launching the Town of Islip ARPA Business Grant Program, KIT, Keep Islip Thriving. This grant will allocate monetary support for small businesses and local nonprofits who have experienced financial hardships due to the COVID-19 pandemic. These grants will soon be available for application on the Town of Islip website at www.islipny.gov. Stay tuned for more information. Additionally, we are also pleased to announce the reformation of the Anti-Bias Task Force to be known as the Town of Islip Unity Council to better focus on inclusivity, diversity, equity, and accessibility in the Town of Islip. IDEA for short. The Unity Council will launch its first event this month, Thursday, April 28th, in observance of Holocaust Remembrance Day. We will hear the words and story from a Holocaust survivor who lives in our town, as we vow to never forget and to learn from that dark period in our history. Looking forward this month and ahead to May, we're sounding the call to all resident photographers to keep their cameras at the ready for the Town of Islip Photo Contest, open to Town of Islip High School students and amateur photographers. They will be judged by our very own Pulitzer Prize winning photographer, Dan Goodrich, and Newsday's Director of Multimedia News Gathering, John Keating. The winners will have their winning photograph displayed at the Loyola MacArthur Airport in the rotunda there, and the first place winner will have a special opportunity to have his or her portfolio a one-on-one review by the judges. So be on the lookout for the official submission details and guidelines coming soon. So we all look forward to seeing that lovely photography. And with that, we will move on to the agenda for the evening. We'll begin this evening with our scheduled public hearing for the board's consideration, and I would ask the town clerk to please read the first hearing notice.
Good evening. Tonight's first hearing is to consider amending the Islip Town Code, Chapter 13A, titled Environmental Council.
Are there any questions or comments on this particular hearing? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing and offer the resolution for its adoption.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Thank you. We will move then to the second public hearing. If you would please read the hearing notice.
Thank you. Madam Supervisor, with regards to hearings 2 through 5, there's one item being entered into the record a correspondence from one Frank Silsdorf to Matthew Blake entitled Response to Fire District Letter dated Tuesday, April 5th, 2022.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome. Hearing number 2 is to consider a 5-year contract with the Village of Ocean Beach for fire protection and ambulance services to the Fire Island Fire Protection District.
Okay, we have a number of cards that have been filled out, and I assume that they're all speaking on hearings 2, 3, 4, and 5, because they're all the separate contracts, but basically the same issue. So I'll call the first speaker up and remind you that you have 3 minutes to comment, and the first speaker is Teresa Macri.
Teresa Macri, 100 Clipper Roadway in Cornell Estates on Fire Island. So thank you for the opportunity to talk here. I'm actually working with a number of other community representatives, and some of those will be speaking here as well. First, I wanted to say I'm really happy that there has been an open discussion for the contracts, because that's something that we were never able to do in the past. So I'm grateful for that. Second thing is I understand that there has now been some review of the contracts as proposed, and there is an ongoing audit that is going on with the fire department budgets. And my understanding is that those audits will be completed by around July of this summer. So knowing that these audits have not been completed yet, I'm requesting that the contract as it's presented right now, which is a 5-year contract, not be done for 5 years, but rather only a 1-year contract, so that this way we can see the results of that audit to understand if those budgets are appropriate, and then from there reassess any future years. So that's the first thing. Second thing is we would like to have transparency with the budgets. That's something that we have not had in the past. The budget that was presented to us in the fall actually had inequities between different communities, and it also did not show all of the funds that were being received into the district. So it was not an accurate representation of the budgets as we understand them. We're hoping that, again, there will be transparency going forward. The third thing is our communities were taxed at 5% for 2022. This contract proposes 3%. If 3% is the amount that does get approved, we want assurances that that extra 2% would be appropriately addressed in 2023, so that either that would reduce our increase for the following year, or it will be refunded in some manner. And then the last thing is in paragraph 17 that has been added to the contract. That paragraph is way too loose. It allows the Village of Ocean Beach a bit of discretion on how to use what they deem excess funds that are collected for the fire department, potentially for other Ocean Beach village uses that are not related to the fire department. So we would like that paragraph clarified. So, and I thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. The next speaker, Jay Van Cott.
Good evening. Hi. Jay Van Cott, 26 Seabreeze Walk, Atlantique. I'm here not so much for the contract. You've gotten our emails. You've seen what our concerns are. Teresa expressed once again where we stand with things like this Proposition 7, paragraph 17 of the contract, the over taxation this year and whatnot. But I would like to point out that the contract, the proposed budget we received from Ocean Beach spoke of a 25% reduction in costs in the second year of the contract, which is next year. It also spoke of how the Ocean Beach residents will see a 40% savings in their expenses next year for the fire department, and how we will see a 3% increase in our contract. So when I have to explain this to my residents, they're not going to be able to explain it, because I really can't either, assuming this is passed as presented. I also want to talk briefly about one of the issues that we've had over the years, especially in Atlantique. Atlantique currently pays the second highest tax rate of the 3 protection districts on Fire Island. And this is because each of the contracts has been treated separately by the process that deals with these. So such that Seaview, who was in first, has a much lower rate. We pay more than twice what they pay in a tax rate. We pay almost twice what the Fire Island Protection District is paying. This comes about because when those contracts were first established, Ocean Beach stuck an arbitrary number on it. And I suspect they got more greedy as time went by, which is why we're so far up in the tax rate compared to the first person in the door. I believe that these should be treated as a single entity. We have 3 departments of the town: Seaview, Fire Island Protection District, and the Atlantic Protection District, that essentially receive the same services from the same vendor, and we're all paying different rates. I doubt that you have many departments in Isotown, if any, that pay different rates for the same service from the same vendor. And yet we are not only subject to that, we are subject on the worst end of that. Also like to point out that sometime in the recent past, this year, last year, I'm not certain, I haven't been able to speak to Eugene down in the controller's office to get the specifics yet. The cost of snow plowing in Atlantic has been added to our fire protection district. Now, for the Burma Road, that is, not for the boardwalks, that's a whole different issue. The Burma Road is an emergency access road that benefits every community east of us, and yet we're on the hook to have it plowed every year now. I doubt if you have any other community that's not incorporated that is paying to have the Burma Road plowed out of their budgets. I'm sure it's coming out of the highway department budget, as that cost did for us up until whenever they made the change. That'll do it.
Thanks so much, Jay. Thank you. Next speaker, Howard Kipps.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor, members of the board. Howard, Kipnes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Correspondence, 900 Marconi Avenue, Ronkonkoma, New York. I'm here tonight, as I've become aware, as a fairly recent property owner within Cornell Estates as part of the Fire Island Fire Protection District of this contract, and I currently have a copy of the proposed contract. And in looking at it, the short synopsis I'd have to ask the board to hold tonight from approving it. As was previously mentioned, there seems to be a lot of questions that the residents, myself included, of the Fire Protection District have. My first question, and I'm hearing a lot of disparities in the budgeting process, is what is the actual total budget for the Ocean Beach Fire Department? And how many total tax entities or how many total tax parcels are there within all of the service areas? Not only my protection district, Seaview, Atlantic, et cetera, as well as the village, and is everybody then divvied up proportionately? I personally was involved years ago, and it's more years than I care to count, when Central Isopopog Ambulance was being funded entirely by this township. But it was aware that the town of Smithtown serviced a large portion. And at that point, we had negotiations, we had discussions, and it was determined based upon, not calls, but tax parcels and tax valuation or assessed value, how to equally fund that department. And a similar thing, I think, is prevalent now, that this needs to step back and take a look at it. There are things in the previous contract that talk about any surplus in the fire department budget that's contributed by all these additional districts reverts back to the village. That seems a rather obscure thing. Why would the village benefit from tax money collected from non-village entities within the fire protection districts? So that needs to be looked at. The thought of a 5-year contract when everything else up until now has been a 3-year contract. Okay, what was the change? Why was it suggested? Why did it appear that the board was going to approve it? The step needs to be taken back. Then there are things, again, in the past. It was my understanding in 2015, $100,000 was budgeted and collected for improvements to Clipper Roadway, where I happen to have property, but it was never rebuilt. I'm assuming this was collected for access and emergency access. Why was this not done? Where is that $100,000? So there's a lot of things that need to be looked at as someone who's just seen this for the first time. And I would implore the board to take a step back, wait for the audit, as was suggested earlier, maybe a one-year extension to the current contract, but let's make sure everybody is paying. But I will also say nobody is questioning the value of the fire department, okay? The services they provide, it is just a matter of how this board oversees the collection of the taxes that are not part of the village, and is the village being forthright in the monies that they're looking to be collected from non-village residents. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that is the last speaker on, oh, no, these are just the public hearings right now. Thank you. No, we have you. Okay, so we have that was hearing 2. We have 3, 4, and 5. Basically, the issues are the same for all of them. What I'd like to do is have the controller come forward, and between Joe Ludwig, the controller, and our town attorney, J.R. DeCiccio, if you can, point by point, answer some of the things that were raised here.
Before I start, somebody leave that pen up here?
Yeah, that was mine.
You're not getting back. That's why you couldn't find it.
That's why I couldn't find it. And just for a little bit of history, because someone made reference to 5 years. 5 years is something that has been consistently requested. And because of some of the issues that the town wanted answered, it was not something that we felt comfortable considering. Then we had COVID and a number of other issues. But with all of the issues that were raised from the various letters and emails that we did receive, those things were put on the table and discussed during the negotiations. So to all of the points, I have some notes. I'm sure you took them too. So Joe, fire away.
Sure. Joseph Ludwig, I'm the controller for the town of Islip, 401 Main Street. So in a kind of an overall leading statement, many of the points that were raised by the constituents here tonight, as well as the letters they have sent in, were the same issues that we had. And correct me if I'm wrong, JR, we went back February of last year, this whole thing really started?
At least February, yes.
So these are the questions we've been trying to get the answers to, and unfortunately, we couldn't get them in 2021. And it wasn't until late 21, early 22, that conversations had once again started between ourselves and the village, and we finally got the answers that we wanted. The constituents, through no fault of their own, when you look at the raw documents that the village has between their budgets and their financial statements, there are items that are fire district related, but they're not listed within the fire district budget. And like I said, it's not the fault of the villages. That is the infinite wisdom of New York State that says certain expenses have to be budgeted and reported in certain spots. One of those items are employee benefits. So the village provides a LOSAP expense, and that's a retirement for retirees. That is not listed within the fire district budget. Additionally,
On a low-
Joe, every department offers low SAP.
That's what
Every
yeah,
department.
I
Including
wanted
Great
to
River,
say
where I
that.
was a commissioner,
Correct.
offers low SAP to their volunteer firefighters.
correct. So again, not picking
This
on the
is
line.
not unique to Fire Island, but
Correct.
as the councilman said, every department has LoSAP benefits. If you want to explain it for those that are, here listening.
So LOSAP, very simplistically put, and this is way more information than anybody probably wanted to know, but it stands for Length of Service Award Program. And whereas employees of municipalities, we are part of the New York State retirement system, volunteers do not have that. So ambulance companies and fire districts will basically become the sponsor for a LOSAP program and allows their volunteers to get some sort of a pension for doing the work that they do. I'll be the first to admit, you're never going to see me running into a burning building. I'm running the opposite direction. So the LOSAP, it's the least that we can do for them. My point, however, was that those are expenses that are not included within the fire district budget. There's also a specific insurance line for fire-related purposes that is also not listed within the fire district budget. Again, New York State requires those expenses to be reported in certain spots. So that was really the crux of what we were trying to get the answers to. And like I said, it took a long time to finally get those answers. And when we did, we dropped it into my little schedule and I looked at their budget, what was proposed and what they're requesting. And we did factor in the money that they're getting from the town of Oyster Bay on the Seaview side. Once we,
Oyster Bay or Brookhaven?
sorry, TOB,
Brookhaven.
it's all abbreviations. I apologize.
I don't think the supervisor of Oyster Bay is ready to do that.
Yes, that would be one hell
I'll
of a go.
ask.
So the town of Brookhaven, that money was factored into the calculation. So when you back everything out, and we did it all based on assessed valuation, that's how we became comfortable with the numbers. And it was at that point that we felt comfortable going forward and having a contract that, the town attorney and I basically worked on. He did the legal, I did the numbers, and that's what's before you guys right now. I've heard a couple people mention an audit that should be done around July 23rd. I just want to make sure that everyone understands it's not an audit that New York State is doing. Municipalities are all required to be audited by an independent accounting firm. The village is not exempt from that requirement as well. The audit they're going to have done could be done by July, could be done in August. I don't know what their time frame is. The problem is that is going to be reporting on operations as of May 31st, 2022. We're entering into a contract that's going to cover, for our purposes, January to December, but the village runs on a different fiscal year. So by the time we got their audit to cover the amount we're going to pay this year, that would not be until July of 23. So I've heard people suggest making this just a one-year contract and wait for the audit, and then we can analyze. We wouldn't have that audit information before we would technically have to start into either a second year one or year two if we went forward with a 5-year contract. What's the right way to put this? There is a lot of faith that we are taking as of this point in time, and that's why within the contract language, we've requested the financial statements to be submitted to us, but also we're requesting their annual update document, abbreviated as an AUD. The AUD is a state report that has the accounts set up the way the state likes to see them. The financial statements are governed by a different set of people, and we do things slightly different on the financial statement. So between those two documents put together, and then any other different additional information I would need, I will reach out to my counterparts over the village, and they'll provide that information, and we can make sure that what the residents on Fire Island are paying has been used for the appropriate firematic services. As the language is written in the contract, if it's not spent, the village has to put it in a reserve for fire district purposes. So some people said it can be used for general village expenses, and the answer to that is flat out no. It is in there specifically for fire purposes, and it can only be used for fire purposes. And that's basically what a reserve fund does, is that you're setting in this case, it would be a village board restriction, but it can only be used for that purpose. That was really the best way that we could get some sort of security that the money is going to be spent properly, and if it's not, it's going to be set aside. So when we get those financial statements in the annual update document, the town attorney and I will sit and we'll chat and we'll look at it, and if that number is not where it's supposed to be, that's when we have the recourse to go back to the village and say, okay, why was this not spent? You need to be spending that money. The out, and correct me if I'm wrong, would be to cancel the contract and then restart the process or get somebody else to come in. I will say that when we did our cursory kicking around, simplistically put, if we did not go through the village to staff it for EMS as well as fire services, it probably would be doubling the cost of the contract because all the infrastructure has to be created over on Fire Island. Right now, we're using the village's infrastructure. We don't need to buy ambulances and fire trucks and all that type of stuff. To invest in that would be even more cost prohibitive than what people might be willing to pay for it now.
Joe, I have a question on the AUD, the annual update documents that municipalities are required to file with the state. Were we in the past getting those documents?
No.
Okay, so that was one of the new measures that was put in this contract, sort of like a checks and balances, if you will, so that we could monitor that what we are agreeing to is in fact being adhered to.
Correct. And like I said before, because there are expenses that are not listed, because I did the same thing. I opened up their budget and I said, that does not work. Try to get the questions. Like I said, it took a long time to finally get those answers. And I will give, the Deputy Mayor, Matt Blake, I believe. He's the one who reached out to us. We've had great conversations going back and forth. We've already both agreed, at least quarterly, if not more, we're going to constantly touch base. So if there are issues on the village side, he can let me know up front, and then we can make the appropriate adjustments if needed. The key about this whole thing going forward, and I've heard someone mention it before, is communication. We need to have that communication. And for a while, we had a very, not a great relationship with the village in trying to get information back and forth. And it was very adversarial and confrontational at times. That tenor and that tone has significantly changed in this recent round of negotiations that we had. And our hope is that the language that we put in there is going to protect and secure and make sure that we're not paying for things that they're not spending. Like I said, there is going to be a time lag on that just because of the different fiscal years, but we do have the ability through the town attorney's office to cancel the contract, to sue for, insert the word here, JR, I apologize.
Breach of contract?
There you go. So we do have some recourse. None of it, though, is going to be as timely as we would like to think. And again, and that's because the village operates on a different fiscal year than we do. So there's always going to be that built-in time constraint.
And
Joe,
Yes.
if I could interrupt for a moment, the issue was raised that 5% was budgeted, but the agreed upon amount was only 3%. So what is the recourse? What is the remedy for that?
So the reason we put the 5% in there is because the village's first submission was a 5-year contract with 5-year percent increases. We were not going to do that, and we didn't. However, when it came to the budget, I had to make sure that we had that 5% in there in case a decision was made that we're going to go with the 5%. So, and I forget, I think it was actually Teresa? She brought up the 5% versus the 3%, and as best as we can when we're doing the 23 budget, the additional monies that were raised will be used to reduce that tax levy into 23.
Can you answer about combining districts?
And Jay, he brought up oh no, sorry, it was Mr. Kipnis. Did I? Thank you very much.
Better than I.
The $100,000 that was budgeted back in 2015 for the walks, that was done because there was one community, and I forget which one it was, the village put us on notice that the walk was not passable. So we had to budget monies to fix it. At the time, I'd reached out to the town engineer and said, I need cost estimates in case we need to fix all those non-dedicated walks in those communities. That's where that $100,000 came from. And I believe, Teresa, it was you and I who chatted about that, right?
Yes, maybe not get fully.
Ultimately, what happened was a section that needed to be replaced was replaced by the homeowners. The village did not want to let us off the hook and probably put a letter in there to say, yes, the walkway is now passable. But the town engineer had said, yes, no, the work is good and the walk is now passable. And that expense in those other communities was taken out and not budgeted. Let's see, what else do we have?
Joe, while you're looking at your notes, the one point that I think is very important, the total amounts of these 4 contracts that we have before us, they do not fund the entire village fire budget, correct?
That is correct. So
Okay.
when you factor in all the pieces that are firematic related, back out the monies that they're expecting to get from the town of Brookhaven, then you take our 55%, because that's our assessed value versus the village's assessed value. That's what the numbers that are included in the budget for.
JR, can you answer the point that was raised about having all the districts combined?
Well, each district was created decades ago. They're each single and separate entities. I think the 2 that were compared were the Seaview Fire Protection District. So that district pays about $325,000 a year, as compared to the Atlantique Fire Protection District, which pays about $80,000 a year.
I want to follow up if I can. The districts, they're special taxing districts. They're created by an act of the state legislature.
Yep.
Each district created at a separate point in time. Yes?
I believe in this case, they may have all been created at the same
Based on
time.
my very quick experience over these last 6 or 7 days in trying to get educated on this issue, it's been represented to me that each district was created at a separate
Right,
time.
I think Atlantique, the Atlantique Marina and the Atlantique homeowners were created later in time.
Okay. And by state law, each independent taxing district has to have its own independent budget.
Correct.
So you can't just cumulate, because they may be of like nature, neighboring communities, similar communities. You look at them, they look a lot the same in terms of the houses. You can't accumulate them for purposes of how much you're going to charge back to the Village of Ocean Beach, because they have to be treated independently because they're independent taxing entities.
Correct.
Okay. Joe, you mentioned LoSAP. There's also the volunteer firefighters and benefits law, correct? So volunteer firefighters in our state are entitled to workers' compensation benefits if they get hurt in the course of their volunteer work as a firefighter. That's state mandate that every fire district do that. It's something, as you mentioned, when it came to LoSAP, a small price to pay that we can offer to our volunteers. Should they get hurt on the job, they're entitled to workers' compensation. Is there a line item in the Ocean Beach fire budget for volunteer firefighters and benefit workers act as it relates to workers' compensation benefits,
I would
similar
have-
to LoSAP?
Yeah, I would have to go back to look at the budget, but I'm going to venture a guess and
Well-
feel very confident with it that it's not.
Mr.
It's gonna be budgeted in
Silsdorf's,
different
Mr.
sections.
Silsdorf's email to us represents that it does not. Also, recently, there's been some state legislation that exactly, John, yep, that requires fire districts to cover their volunteers should they get inflicted with cancer, because you can't tell whether it was a result of smoke inhalation from a fire that they responded to or for some other reason. So we cover our volunteer firefighters for cancer. That's something we do to them as a volunteer who's willing to, like you said, run into burning buildings. That's something, and that's state legislation mandated on every fire district. Is that covered in the Ocean Beach district?
Probably not listed in the fire department portion of the budget.
Well, surely Mr. Silsdorf's email to Mr. Blake suggests that it is not.
Yeah, not to cut you off, Councilman, but those things are insurance/fringe benefit related. So it's going to be either in the insurance section or the fringe benefit section, neither of which unfortunately are listed under firematic expenses.
But again,
it was-
required by state law that they
Correct.
be listed under those separate categories, even though they are attributed, or a portion of them are attributed to the fire service.
Yes, and simplistically put, the reason the state does that is because they accumulate all these AUDs from every taxing jurisdiction, and they have to summarize everything so they can get a full picture of what the state looks like. It's not going to work if you 5 people are all reporting something in a different spot. So that's why they came out with the mandated state chart accounts.
It was mentioned by one of the speakers, I believe, Mr. Van Cott, although I apologize if it was not. My notes say it was him about snow plowing. Now, Fire Island is generally known as a summer community, but fire doesn't distinguish between summer and winter, right?
Correct.
So if a fire broke out in the winter, the fire truck from Ocean Beach that's going to work its way to that fire needs to get to that fire, whether it's in the middle of August or where there's 2 feet of snow on the ground on February 1st.
Correct. And the problem with that, and it was Mr. Van Cott who mentioned it, is the walks over on Fire Island, for the most part, are not dedicated, which basically and simplistically means is that Commissioner Owens and his DPW crowd are not responsible to take care of it. So it falls onto the responsibility of each different fire district community to keep those walks passable, and that's why the snow plowing charges get attached to them.
It was mentioned, I think, by Mr. Kipnis that there is a specific clause in the contract that should there be a surplus, that the surplus would flow to the village.
So the village would keep it. However, like I mentioned before, it has to go into a reserve fund. That would be a village board approval. Should be done through a village board action, and it's going to stand out there like a sore thumb, reserved for firematic services, or whatever it is they're going to call it, but it's specific to fire services, not for, pool or additional raises or anything else like that.
Suppose the village under budgeted and there was a deficit or a liability. Would they be able to go back to the taxpayers and of these special districts and collect from them again?
I would defer to the town attorney, but no.
No. So they're doing the best they can, projecting on a budget, which is what you do. When
Right.
you do municipal financing, you project as best you can. You can't guarantee a surplus or a liability. They're on the hook for the liability. And the surplus, as you mentioned, goes into a fund balance.
Simplistically put, yeah, it's a reservation of fund balance. It should be noted it's not just fund balance. Fund balance is unrestricted. This is a restricted fund balance line, but that is where any unspent monies would go. Like I said, for the first year or so, it's a lot of hope and faith because of the timing. We're not going to have those numbers to truly back into it on a truly timely basis to start January of 23.
And that is the newest feature of this contract, that the money does have to go into this reserve account as opposed to the village general fund.
And again, the reserve account being audited by their independent auditors. But at some point in time, all the fire districts are subject to audit from the state. And if a state came in and said a special district, for example, we saw that with some of our school districts recently, have too much in their reserve account, the state, under the Office of State Controller, would criticize the special district for that.
Correct. And just so we're clear, school districts have a different set of rules where they do actually have a threshold on fund balance. Our other municipalities do not. Your point is well taken. State Control's office can come down at any point at any time to audit any municipality.
And they
have their
do.
own
They do. They
back-
periodically review all fire
Right.
districts.
Yep.
Okay, just for the purposes of the record, I know that the town clerk read in that Mr. Silsdorf's email to Mr. Burke dated April 5th was going to be part of the record. I'd also ask, Mr. Blake, thank you. I'd also ask that the December 15th email to Joe and Eugene from the respective community members and their March 28th, 2022 letter to all of us, directed to the supervisor, but copied to all of us up here, that those be part of the record as well, just to make sure the record is complete.
Okay, and when you refer to Joe and Eugene, you mean Joe Ludwig and
Eugene Schaefer.
Eugene
Eugene Schaefer from
Schaefer?
the Control's office.
Okay.
And just one other thing that I want to say, because I know it has been mentioned, and the village has admitted that for 2020 and for 2021, they did not spend all the money that was given to them. A lot of it had to do with COVID-related issues, and they couldn't do certain things. And there are other items that they've ordered, and I don't know how many people have seen it at home, but there is a supply issue where, and Commissioner Owens can talk better if we want him to, but trucks that used to take us 6 months are now taking 18 months. So expenses that they were expecting to spend, they've ordered, just the bill has not yet come in. So again, it goes back to assurances that they levied that this money will be spent. It's just going to be more of a timing situation.
Okay, I think from all of the discussion, we can all appreciate that this is a very complicated issue and not easy to solve. But we do know that it is incumbent upon us to make sure that the residents and the visitors over to Fire Island are protected from fire and medical emergencies. JR, did you have anything to add to this? With the
Well,
process?
I mean, as far as the town's responsibility, we are obligated to, keep those districts protected. We are obligated to provide fire and EMS to those districts.
And we as the folks approving this contract, we have the obligation to do our due diligence to make sure that all of the residents of the special district, in terms of this contract with the village, are being treated as fair as possible.
We are.
And it's, I mean, my education on this, as I say, over the last 6 or 7 days is, it doesn't appear completely like you and the town controller, who are into a negotiation with the village, are on a level playing field when it comes to that negotiation.
Well, there's certainly not many other fire departments over there that can provide this service.
And that's why it is an unlevel playing field. If there was somebody else who could compete for this contract, we'd certainly be willing to entertain or listen to it. But unfortunately, the homes that we have an obligation to protect as the stakeholders would be burned to the ground if we put a fire truck on a ferry and waited for it to get over there.
Right.
Councilman, you have the other thing that in the language of this contract, the reason Fair Harbor can't do it is Fair Harbor only has basic life.
Right.
And they had Ocean Beach has advanced life support.
Yeah, I thought about Fair Harbor as
Yeah.
it relates to Lonelyville and Dunewood and Lonelyville, but they can't offer the EMS services that the village provides.
And this has been explored over the past number of years. This isn't something that, just appeared. It's complicated. But I think I have a little bit more confidence in the checks that were put in place in all of the discussions and negotiations. And again, the issues that, like we had that the residents have raised that I think we've addressed point by point. And, the safety that we're responsible for providing has to trump everything.
I just think it's important to say that I thank the residents for taking so much interest
Absolutely.
in their fire protection, because as someone who has served as a commissioner on a fire district, you generally don't see this at the public hearing where you're approving the fire district's contract. So I think it's great that you're here. I think it's great that you're holding people's feet to the fire. I think it's great that you're learning the budget process and reviewing it. I think you need to stay engaged.
Agreed. And I had a conversation a couple of days ago with a couple of members from Fire Island, and they have my phone number, they have my email. I told them, by all means, continue to reach out to me if anything changes, or if JR and I are finding we have issues, we'll reach out to them and keep them informed. Like I said earlier, and this applies to anything in life, it's all about communication. And for a long time, I'm not going to lie, we did not have the greatest communication between the town and the village, and between the town and the residents. And that's something that, as I stand here now, the village has already told me, yeah, that's not happening anymore. I completely agree, and I've expressed that to the residents as well.
And at the end of the day, as the town attorney said, the contract can always be terminated.
Yeah, we can always bring an action to, hold them in breach of contract.
And seek recourse if something is not
Yeah,
being
it's not-
spent
it's-
appropriately,
But
but
it's certainly not the preferred course.
Councilwoman?
I just want to follow up. Joe, I know you were just speaking about communication. Is there anything that's going to be in the contract which mandates communication within a certain, time period? Say quarterly?
We talked about putting that in there, and I'm actually going to give the deputy mayor credit for this one. He was the one who I think ultimately decided not to, because he didn't want to hamstring us, just for argument's sake, to say once a quarter. It's going to be a constant communication back and forth. And so instead of locking us into a specific time frame, it's just an open door of communication, an open dialogue back and forth. We didn't feel the need to actually put in specific time frames. There are certain things that we're going to get that's going to automatically start conversation. When I get their AUD, which is due 60 days after their year end, will be done before their audit. That starts conversation number one. When the audit comes due, that's conversation number two. As we're working on our audit, there's conversation number three. And that's basically 3 conversations in the span of 4 months. So it's the natural course of it. We're going to have to be talking on a regular basis.
And while the contract is for 5 years, they have to go through the budget process each and every year,
Correct.
just as any special district does.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Hearing no further questions or comments, we will move to make a motion. Sorry, the public hearing, you had your opportunity to come forward at the hearing. Pardon me?
Short.
Absolutely. So should we? Yes,
And close it all at once.
Yeah. Close them all at once and vote them all at once.
Say the last 3.
We will take a little bit of a recess until they
Motion?
come back in.
Oh,
Wait till they
okay,
come
yeah,
back in, yeah.
Supervisor, would you like
Yes,
me to
ma'am.
read the last 3 into the record?
Do the notices have to be read in?
Well, the 3 individual ones do, but we can take one vote.
Yeah, okay, so why don't you do that in the interest of moving it along?
Okay,
Read
absolutely.
hearing number 3.
Hearing
or
number
5.
3 is to consider a 5-year contract with the Village of Ocean Beach for fire protection and ambulance services to the Atlantic Fire Protection District. Hearing number 4 is to consider a 5-year contract with the Village of Ocean Beach for fire protection and ambulance services to the Seaview Fire Protection District. And the 5th and final hearing is to consider a 5-year contract with the Village of Ocean Beach for fire protection and ambulance services to the Atlantic Marina District.
All right, so the record is clear. We will combine all 4 public hearings into one. Each of the records will be the record for each individual hearing, and we'll have one vote that will be the same for all 4 contracts, all four public hearings.
Thank you. Could we move to the Resource Recovery Agency?
Or open
We have the
the open session. That's a good idea.
Well, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Close the public hearing and vote when they come back.
Okay. No, yeah, okay. All right, so while we're waiting for the controller to come back in, we're going to move to item 1 on the agenda, the meeting of the Town of Islip Resource Recovery Agency. A motion to convene
Motion.
by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilman Cochran. Quorum being present, the meeting is convened. Commissioner Blue.
Madam Chair, members of the agency board, Martin Blue, 401 Main Street, President of the Islip Resource Recovery Agency. I have a
This is
couple
short, I
of,
think.
items for consideration tonight. First being the approval of the minutes from the March 8th, 2022 agency board meeting.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilwoman Mullen, second
Second.
by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved.
Next resolution is an authorizing resolution for the president to enter into a contract, MRF HVAC 2021-001, between the agency and Intricate Tech Solutions Limited for HVAC improvements to the Islip multi-purpose recycling facility.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved.
And that concludes the business for the agency.
No other business to come before us. Do I have a motion
Motion to
to
adjourn.
adjourn by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman Mullen? All those in favor? Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you very much, Commissioner. You know, we could go to the public portion. We could. We have 2 speakers, just in the interest of moving things along. We will convene the public portion. Let me just see. I don't want to. We have 4 speakers. Okay. We will start with Speaker 1, Andy Cross. And again, just to remind everyone, public portion, you have 3 minutes, not a question and answer. Just bring your issues forward. If it's something that one of the commissioners can address today, they will do so. Mr. Cross.
Andy Cross, Brentwood Street in Bay Shore. And once again, I'm here about the NYS real property law line on my Islip Town tax. And just to say, with the people that came up here just before me, these people from Ocean Beach or wherever they're from, when I called up about this tax the first time, you blamed it on New York State. So it sounded to me, sitting in the seat, that all of yous were blaming New York State for their fire department problems, and I don't believe it. But when the tax went up 41%, you blamed it on the decrease in the price of housing in the town. Now that the price of housing has risen at least 2 years, probably 4, and the tax has not gone down, but raised up in the last 2 years, probably 4. What's going on? Where's this tax money going? With no one to blame for these tax hikes, the blame for the tax hikes is on the town board for the taxes as high as 41%, and other taxes 51%. What's going on? Where's all this money going? All of the tax abatement law firms are getting special treatment for their political connections. There has to be some connection for this tax going up every year while claiming it to hold down taxes. In one of your propaganda statements, you said you were holding down taxes after meeting with the commissioners. What happened to the DEC commissioner? Did he miss his message? Did he miss the meeting? Did he not get the memo? Did the dog eat his message? Why did you say you're holding down taxes when this tax went up 9%? Also, the Commissioner of New York's NYS is not New York State, like it's what I was told. Real property tax law, which no one is, went up with no commissioner to blame except the whole town board who had to vote on rising this tax. So where's all this money going? Nothing? I mean, you just had a big conversation with these people from Ocean Beach. I'm waiting. Nobody?
We're listening.
Still waiting. You're gonna wait till I sit down, then say something again?
Mr. Cross, you have 3 minutes to share your thoughts and comments with us.
I
and we're
am, but I'm
listening.
waiting for somebody to say something.
Time's up.
I'm
Thank
also
you.
waiting for somebody to do something.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker, Carol Forsmith.
Supervisor Carpenter and esteemed board. My name is Carol Forsmith. I live at 10 Dolores Place in Central Islip. And so we live around the corner from the Central Islip High School, and our street has been overrun by parking from the high school. And we're just seeking signs that say no parking on school days from 8:30 until 4 o'clock. As you can see through those pictures, our street is not designed to have so many cars parked on it every day. We have no curbs and we have no sidewalks. And every morning I wake up and I find the young people have parked on my lawn again. And so I kind of feel like the village crazy lady, but I go out and I will tell the young people, you're illegally parked. And they don't know why. And they are they're parked opposing the side of traffic, so they're parked on the left-hand side of the road, or they're blocking an active driveway, or they're parked too close to the stop sign between Dolores and Wheeler so that you can't see the traffic before you pull onto it. And so these cars have their inspections overdue. They have their registrations expired.
Where are the cops?
So I go out and I gently tell a young person, you're illegally parked. Sweetheart, just turn your car around. And one day I started to ask, and I just started to ask gently. I don't do this in obnoxious fashion. Do you have a license? And the answer 100% of the time is no.
Ooh.
So I've got unlicensed drivers that are filling up my street. And when other students come down the streets, they hot swerve around their friends. They don't know how to acquiesce to the daycare center that is across the street from us. Moms putting their children in the car on our street. They are, I don't want to say they're rude, but their music is always louder than what I'm comfortable with. And so it has become a real point of angst on our street. And I'm just looking for do not park on school day signs, because every other street in our neighborhood has them. And our street, the eastern end, is 2/3 do not park on school days. They have the signs 2/3 of our street. And so we are the 1/3 that doesn't have them. And we are just getting, my property looks terrible. They leave their food wrappers, their masks. They clean out their cars, I think. They've left just mud puddles everywhere. And so I just need a lifeline with this. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming down. Scott Forsmith?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor and Council, and hearing a little different perspective. The picture that's handed to you, Supervisor Carpenter, shows a vehicle trying to go down this road. I'm not a licensed first responder, but somehow I end up in those situations on a pretty consistent basis, like maybe because I have a level head or whatnot. We've had a critical incident across the street from us. And during the daytime, an ambulance will have a real difficulty getting down this passageway. And we also, speaking with one of the firefighters at the firehouse on the corner by our home, I said, "Can you get a fire truck down our street?" And his response was, "We will just smash every car out of the way." And I said, "Well, that's probably not the best solution." So we're just, again, hitchhiking on the same theme. This is a very new development. This did not happen last year, and we've been on this block for 22 years. But something changed at the school where maybe they're asking students to prove their licensing. And all of a sudden now they're parking
Gotcha.
in very ad hoc formation around our property, on our property, of course, unfortunately. And so we've made inquiries as far as what the proper channels are, and we're hoping that being before you this evening might help facilitate, again, just a continuation of the already precedented no parking on school days, as my wife has indicated. It's already down our street, 3/4 of the way down, and then it stops for some reason, unbeknownst to me. So I guess because it was never an issue, but at this point, it has become a serious issue for our community. We have a daycare center, as already been indicated. I have a house with a ramp in front of it because a person needs that type of assistance. And from a safety standpoint, that's my great concern. And of course, if my house caught on fire, I would have a problem with a fire department equipment arriving to the property due to this inconvenience or this illegal parking. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you so much for coming down, and the commissioner is here, and we have the address, and especially that there's already signage on the street. I don't see where it's going to be problematic, but certainly traffic engineering will go down and check it out. In the meantime, as far as unregistered vehicles, expired, inspections, et cetera, have you called the police department? Okay. Okay, all right.
And I'll just back up what the supervisor said. So everybody gets up and speaks at the public portion, and then they go home, and I don't blame you. You have things you have to do. But if you hang around for number 11 on tonight's calendar, we'll be authorizing the town clerk to announce a public hearing for traffic code stuff, like parking regulations. There's a process, so we'll make sure we get in touch with you.
Thank you. And the final speaker is Jim Schlau.
Jim Slough, 415 Cliff, Central Islip, almost 60 years. I just want to bring this up first before I go anywhere. My notes will all mixed up there, please. Okay, 440 Ackerman, 31922. 440 Ackerman, and 435 Elmore, a new house that never did this. Called the cops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They finally stopped at 12:30 at night, loud parties again, guy yelling in the speaker in Spanish all night long. I can't stand it. It never stops. It's the same thing over and over again. Now, Christmas Eve, when it's supposed to be silent night, till 2 in the morning, 5-inch mortars. So I go to find out where it's coming from, and I have a bunch of pictures in here. It's mixed in with the other ones. They're stapled together. I drove down First Street. They're in here. Cars parked on the sidewalk. One house had 4 cars in the driveway, 6 on the sidewalk. Who's paying for these sidewalks? We did. And now you got all these newcomers in who are probably crossing the border illegally. I don't know what. Because this place is a mess and it's beyond your control. The system is broken. Look at these houses. You got commercial vehicles on the property. These are single-family houses. I bought a single-family house. I have 4 empty rooms in my house, and I'm not renting them to strangers. You got people living in these houses, I don't know how many people. Now, you have rules here, you know. I'd like to park on a sidewalk like that in Patchogue, in the business district, where the stores are, and see how fast they get stopped. This is way out of hand. And we got, I would like some representation. They got this new Spanish guy here. We're not getting represented. They are. They're the ones who are blasting the music, not me. That's why we're losing all our good neighbors. You cannot go anywhere in the house, even the basement, and not hear this. I'm talking about the bass, like they used to have at the Oak Beach Inn, coming in your house, 8 to 12 hours a day. It never stops. The cops said they're gonna do something. I got letters here where I had a sergeant come to my house. We had an hour-long discussion about this. They said it was gonna stop, and here it is, March, the same old thing again. Nobody's stopping it. You got noise. Your code says that they can't do this at any time. I'm losing good neighbors. I got another lady. You see that truck there in the driveway at 455 Elmore? She can't sleep because one of them has a refrigeration unit on the truck. And she hears the thing all night long. This has been going on for a couple of years. See, I'm like the little mayor around there. People come to me because they know I come here. Mr. O'Connor, you said that you were going to enforce the codes and that thing you sent to my house. I don't see any enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schlau, and we'll be sure, and I know Mr. O'Connor will too, and to share these with public safety. Okay, that's it for the public portion. Do I have a motion to close public portion? Motion by Councilman Mullen, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor, opposed? The public portion is closed. I think we should go back to the public hearings. You know, obviously they're, you know, discussing things, but I don't see how we can continue to hold it. I know.
They're not ready?
Hi, I'm back. So it was a good conversation we had outside. The residents did raise one question, and it goes back to section 17, I believe, JR. It's that first opening line where I think we say barring unforeseen or exigent circumstances. Their request was, is there any way that we can get a little more specific as to what those types of circumstances are? I'm giving it and leaving it in that generic form. Can we approve the contracts and then tweak that language?
Well, I mean,
I don't know what the official protocols would be on that.
the contracts are approved subject to form. I mean, that's as long as we approve the term, the contractual amount, I can go back to the village to see if they will remove that language.
It's not so much removing. I think they would like a more detailed listing as to how the money. So as I mentioned to them, I said, the problem when you sit through a negotiation is, 100,000 words are said, 6 made the paper. We all remember the other 99,994 words, but when you read the 6 on the paper, it doesn't quite jive to what we talked about.
I mean,
So think we just need a better-
I can tell you, I'll tell the board, and Joe knows, but we did try to have that language removed. The village was not willing to do that. But we can certainly go back again and try.
That was their main concern, though, in section. Just they're afraid that the language is a little too vague, which would allow the village to potentially use the money for things other than firematic services.
They can't just arbitrarily go ahead and use it without us monitoring it, and we
Correct.
will be monitoring it.
Yes, but that was their
Between
concern.
the town attorney's office, the controller's office, and the supervisor's office, for that matter.
Correct.
This will be monitored.
Mhm.
So, Joe, is there anything else you needed to add?
That was
Okay.
the main takeaway from that side.
Okay. All right, so do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and adopt the contracts.
So that's closing public hearing number 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Correct.
Correct. We have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay. Motion by Councilman Mullins, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor? Opposed? And I am going to abstain. So we have 4 in favor, 1 abstention. It is approved. Okay, we will now move to item 2, meeting at the Town of Islip Industrial Development Agency. Mr. Walzer, good to see you. Motion to convene by Councilman Cochran, second
Second.
by Councilman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed. The Town of Islip Industrial Development Agency meeting is convened, the quorum being present. You may begin.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the agency board. John Walzer, Director, 40 Nassau Avenue, Islip, New York. I have several items for your consideration today. First item to consider is the approval of the minutes from the agency board meeting on March 8th of this year.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Mullen, second by Councilman Guadron. All those in favor, opposed, approved.
The next item for your consideration is an inducement resolution regarding the assignment and assumption of the courthouse corporate center facility at 320 Carlton Avenue in Central Islip.
Any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second
Second.
by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, approved.
The next item for your consideration is a resolution consenting to a sublease at the 158 Candlewood Road Bay Shore facility to Central Goddessman Inc., a wholesaler of paper products used for printing, packaging, cleaning, and other uses.
Any questions? Hearing none. Motion? Motion by Councilman Guadron, second by Councilwoman O'Connor. All those in favor, opposed, approved.
Next item for your consideration is a resolution authorizing mortgage financing and extension of the completion date for the Nether Bay LLC facility at 36 South Clinton Avenue in Bay Shore.
Any questions? Hearing none.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman O'Connor. All those in favor, opposed, it is approved.
Okay, the next item for your consideration is a resolution to approve an agreement between the agency and PKF O'Connor Davies for professional auditing services for the 2021 fiscal year.
Any questions? Motion by Councilman Guadron, second
Second.
by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, approved.
The
We
next
have one
item-
recusal on that last resolution.
Councilman Cochran.
Item 7.
Thank you. Okay, the next item I have for your consideration is a resolution consenting to the transfer of ownership of the real estate of the New York Tent facility at 1401 Lakeland Boulevard in Bohemia.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, opposed, approved.
Thank you. The next item for your consideration is a resolution consenting to the sale of oil tanks and the transfer of fuel storage rights by the Emergency Ambulance Service Company at 1600 Locust Avenue in Bohemia.
Any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Councilwoman O'Connor,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor,
Aye.
opposed, approved.
The next item for your consideration is a resolution authorizing a mortgage financing at 555 North Research Place in Central Islip.
Any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman Guadron. All those in favor, opposed, approved.
And the last item I have for your consideration is a resolution consenting to a lease agreement at the 111 Rodeo Drive Edgewood facility to Sky Zone Deer Park LLC.
Any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Councilwoman Mullen, second
Second.
by Councilman Cochran. All those in favor, opposed, it is approved. Any other business? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much, John. Next, we have the meeting of the Town of Islip Economic Development Corporation. Do I have a motion to convene by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor, opposed, we stand convened, quorum being present. Aha, John, nice to see you back.
And thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the Corporation Board. I have two items for your consideration this evening. The first to consider is approval of the minutes from the Corporation Board meeting on January 11th of this year.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, approved.
And the last item I have for you is a resolution to approve an agreement between the corporation and PKF O'Connor Davies for professional auditing services for the 2021 fiscal year.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Councilwoman Mullen, second by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor, opposed, 4 in favor, 1 recusal. The motion passes. Any other business?
That's all I have. for you.
Okay, hearing none, motion to adjourn by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor, opposed, we stand adjourned. Thank you. Next meeting, Town of Islip Foreign Trade Zone Board. Do I have a motion to convene? By Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, we stand convened. Quorum being present. Mr. Hemingway.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Foreign Trade Zone Board. My name is Brad Hemingway. I'm the Executive Director for the Town of Islip Foreign Trade Zone Authority, located at 1 Trade Zone Drive in Ronkonkoma. I have 3 items for your attention this evening. First item being the approval of our minutes from the January 11th, 2022 meeting of the Town of Islip Foreign Trade Zone Board.
Any questions on the minutes? Motion by Councilman Guadrone, second by Councilman Cochran. All those in favor, opposed, approved.
Next one is authorization for the Town of Islip Foreign Trade Zone Authority to use PKF O'Connor Davies LLP for professional auditing services for fiscal year ending 2021.
Any questions? Motion? Motion by Councilwoman Mullen, second by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor, opposed, 4 in favor, 1 recusal. The motion passes.
And lastly, just authorization for the Town of Islip Trade Zone Authority to enter into a 3-year contract with Quinn and Finer Service Company as a service and maintenance provider for the heating and cooling system at our office.
Are there any questions on this? Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor, opposed, it is approved. Any other business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, we stand adjourned. That takes us to item 5, Town Board authorization to clean up or secure certain properties in the town of Islip. Karen, good to see you.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor, members of the Town Board, Town Clerk, Taryn Jewell, Assistant Town Attorney, 655 Main Street, Islip. Number 1 has been withdrawn as is now in compliance. Number 2 has also been withdrawn as it is in compliance. Number 3, to board and clean up the premises located at 146 Burgold Street, Brentwood. On this vacant and unsecured property, there now exists unsecured windows and doors with litter and debris, which constitutes a nuisance and presents a fire, safety, and health hazard. Notice of this hearing was provided to all known persons with a property interest in this premise.
Taryn, when they go to board this up, will they also remove that graffiti that's on the garage door?
Our resolutions do allow us to do
Okay.
this, yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, motion? Motion by Councilwoman Mullen, second by Councilman Cochran. All those in favor, opposed, approved.
Number 4, to clean up the premises located at 1494 Brentwood Road, Bayshore. On this property, there now exists litter and debris, which constitutes a nuisance and presents a fire, safety, and health hazard. Notice of this hearing was provided to all known persons with a property interest in this premise.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor, opposed, approved.
And number 5, to clean up the premises located at 1547 North Thompson Drive, Bayshore. On this property, there now exists overgrown vegetation with litter and debris, which constitutes a nuisance and presents a fire, safety, and health hazard. Notice of this hearing was provided to all known persons with a property interest in this premise.
Any questions? Motion? Motion by Councilman Guadrone, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, approved.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. Okay, item 6, authorization for the town clerk to advertise for a public hearing on the transfer of the property located at 156 Pawnee Street, Ronkonkoma, under the Town of Islip CDA's direct sale affordable housing program. Any questions? Motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Item 7 are the appropriation transfers. Any questions? Motion?
Motion.
By Councilwoman Mullen, second by Councilwoman Gaudron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Okay. Item 8, the bid awards. Any questions on these? Hearing none. Motion?
Motion.
By Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman O'Connor. All those in favor? Opposed? It is approved. Item 9 are the option year resolutions. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Motion? Motion by Councilwoman Mullen, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Item 10, authorization for the supervisor to enter into an agreement with BOCES to participate in the joint municipal cooperative purchasing program for the 2022-23 year. Are there any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman Guadron. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Item 11, authorization with the town clerk to advertise for a public hearing to consider amending the Town of Islip Uniform Traffic Code. Are there any questions? Motion by Councilman Guadron, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Item 12, town board approval to symbolically name the intersection of Babylon Avenue with Hunter Avenue in West Islip in honor of New York City firefighter Joseph Ravelli Jr. to firefighter Joseph R. Ravelli Jr. Way. Any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Item 13, authorization for supervisor to execute a lease agreement with Suffolk County PAL for the recreational fields located at Clayton Avenue, Central Islip. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Motion by Councilman Guadron, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Item 14, authorization for the supervisor to enter into an amendment to the contract of sale with Gullhaven Commons LLC in connection with property located at Carlton Avenue, Central Islip. Any questions? Hearing none. Motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman Guadron. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Takes us to item 15, authorization for the supervisor to enter into a reconciliation agreement with Lessings for the Brentwood Country Club, waiving the fire line charges and late fees incurred during the pandemic. Any questions? Motion by Councilman Guadron, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Item 16, authorization for the supervisor to enter into a reconciliation agreement with Trio Restaurant for the Holbrook Country Club to deem the account current. Any questions?
Motion.
Thank you. Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. And this too is pandemic related. Authorization for the supervisor to enter into a license agreement with Bone v. Bayshore LLC for the utilization of 14 parking spaces located at the terminus of Maple Avenue, Bayshore. Any questions? Hearing none. Motion? Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilman Guadron. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Did you say something? Oh, okay. Item 18, authorization for supervisor to execute any and all documents in order to effectuate the assumption of an existing note and mortgage held by the town in connection with the sale of 11 Cortlandt Place, Bayshore. Any questions? Motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Item 19, authorization for the supervisor to advertise for a public hearing to consider modifying Isotown Code, Chapter 68, entitled Zoning, Article 4, Administration, Permits and Fees, Standards and Requirements, 68-25, Certificate of Occupancy Building. Any questions? Motion by Councilman Guadron, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Item 20, authorization for the supervisor to enter into several agreements for programs to be held throughout the town to be funded by either registration fees or grant fees. So great to see some of these things coming back. Any questions? Motion by Councilman Guadron, second by Councilman Cochran Mullen. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Item 21, authorization with the supervisor to enter into an agreement with Lessings, Inc. to provide a senior full ball luncheon for Town of Islip senior citizens. Any questions? Motion by Councilman Guadron, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 22, authorization for the supervisor to apply for and accept grant funding from the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation for the 2022-26 Clean Vessel Assistance Program to offset operation and maintenance expenses for the town's pump-out boat and five land-based pump-out stations.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 23, authorization for supervisor to request and accept funding from National Grid for the paving restoration in connection with the SL-32 Regulator Station Project Permit Number IT 1023-41-359. Any questions? Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 24, authorization for the supervisor to enter into an agreement with L.K. McLean Associates, P.C. for engineering, construction, monitoring services for various road resurfacing projects in the town of Islip. Any questions? Hearing none. Motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 25, authorization for supervisor to enter into a contract with Stalco Construction for contract DAT 2021-005, service animal relief area construction at Long Island MacArthur Airport. Any questions? This is something that's FAA mandated. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Guadrone, second by Councilman Cochran. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 26, authorization for supervisor to execute a leasehold mortgage estoppel for leases with Hawthorne Global Aviation Services LLC pertaining to several parcels at Long Island MacArthur Airport. Any questions? Motion? Motion by Councilwoman Mullins, second by Councilman Cochran. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 29, authorization for the supervisor to effectuate. I'm sorry, 27 is right. Authorization for the supervisor to effectuate an assignment of contract from Ralph Plotke, Inc. for roof services of New York to contract DAT 2021-004 of main terminal atrium roof coping replacement at Long Island MacArthur Airport. Any questions? Motion.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 28, authorization for the supervisor to enter into a Fifth Amendment to the lease, not the Fifth Amendment, but a Fifth Amendment, to the lease with Hawthorne Global Aviation Services LLC pertaining to 2221 Smithtown Avenue and former Aero Trades parcel to add Hangar 1 to the lease agreement at Long Island MacArthur Airport. Any questions? Motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Guadrone, second
Second.
by Councilman Cochran. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 29, authorization with the supervisor to apply for and accept grant funding through round 20 of the Suffolk County Downtown Revitalization Program in connection with decorative lighting along Montauk Highway in East Islip. Any questions? Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, it is approved. Item 30, authorization for the supervisor to apply for and accept grant funding through round 20 of the Suffolk County Downtown Revitalization Program for the proposed streetscape improvements in West Islip. Any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 31, town board approval of a corner radius dedication at the northeastern corner of Beach Street and Union Boulevard in West Islip. Are there any questions? Motion? Motion by Councilwoman Mullen, second by Councilman Cochran. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 32, authorization for the supervisor to execute contract DPD 3-21P1, exchange ambulance of the Islips Plumbing with Carter Melinek, Inc. Any questions? Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Authorization for the supervisor to execute contract DPD 3-21M1, exchange ambulance of the Islips Mechanical with Intricate Tech Solutions Limited. Any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Item 34, authorization for the supervisor to execute contract DPD 3-21E1, exchange of the Islip's electrical with Commander Electric. Any questions? Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second
Second.
by Councilman Cochran. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 35, authorization for the supervisor to execute contract DPD 3-21G1, exchange of the Islip's general contractor with Patriot Organization, Inc. Any questions? Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 36, special events. Again, happy to have them back. Any questions?
Just for item L, I want to note for the record that there was a typo on the application, and the applicant will be operating in compliance with the town code for the hours of operation.
Oh, thank you. Are there any questions? So we have a motion to approve with the adjustment to item L by Councilman Guadrone, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor, opposed, it is approved. Item 37, authorization with supervisor to execute a license agreement with Many 124 Maple LLC for the utilization of 14 parking spaces, 6 boat slips, and that certain real property located beneath the deck of the restaurant located at the terminus of Maple Avenue in Bay Shore. Any questions? Motion by Councilman Guadrone, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor, opposed, approved with one recusal. We go to item 38, authorization for the supervisor to execute a license agreement with Great South Bay Seafood Company LLC for the utilization of 40 parking spaces located at the terminus of Ocean Avenue Bay Shore. Any question?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 39, authorization for the supervisor to declare surplus and enter into a contract of sale with Matthew Birnbaum for property located at 1098 Joselson Avenue, Bay Shore. Any questions? Hearing none, motion? Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor, opposed, approved. Item 40, authorization for the supervisor to declare surplus and enter into a contract of sale with Classic Partners Realty for a certain property located at 0 Long Island Avenue, Bay Shore. This is up near the Deer Park train station. Any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor, opposed, it is approved. Town Board approval for an amendment of the Town of Islip 2022 capital budget. I'm sorry. Oh, these are sort of stuck together. Thank you. Authorization for the supervisor to execute a one-year agreement with First Tee New York, Inc. to provide a program for golf use and instruction to younger residents of the town. Any questions? Motion by Councilman Guadrone, second by Councilman Cochran. All those in favor, opposed, it is approved. Item 42 is the Town Board approval for an amendment of the Town of Islip 2022 capital budget. Are there any questions? This was an adjustment on the paving. And do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, opposed, it is approved. Town Board approval for the use of the town's SLFRF funds to augment the existing capital program items. Are there any questions? This is the ARPA funding. Do I have a motion? Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor, opposed, it is approved. Item 44, authorization with the supervisor to enter into a contract with KF O'Connor Davies for auditing and accounting services for 2022. Any questions? Hearing none, motion? Motion by Councilman Guadrone, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor? Opposed? One recusal. The motion is approved, and it takes us to item 45 of the bond resolutions. Joe, if you would come forward, please. No? And these will require roll call vote.
And just
Yes, sir.
two of them are unlisted actions for seeker, number 10 and number 15.
Okay.
So we're going to have to, issue a negative declaration.
10 and 15?
10 and 15, yep.
Okay.
That's assuming that you have the same order that I have.
Oh, God, it's a big assumption. Okey doke. Joe, if you
Third time
will.
around, I'm not sure.
We'll see.
Joseph Ludwig, controller for the town of Islip. What you guys have in front of you is an historic packet. I think it might be the most number of bond resolutions this town has ever had before it at one time, and it is definitely the largest dollar amount that we've ever had. As a general rule, we issue somewhere between 20 to 25 million, depending on the year and what needs to get done and doesn't need to get done. This year, we're closer to 45 million, and it's really being driven by three basic projects. The biggest project is the Byron Lake complex. It's about 11.5 million is what's included in the bond resolution. And that is to, and Commissioner Owens, please correct if I'm getting anything wrong, but that is going to basically redo the entire complex over there. That's the reason why the number is so large. To my knowledge, we have not done anything other than patchwork, probably for at least 20 years, if not longer. The pool, the facilities, it all is just needs to be done. The pools need to be fixed for several years. We've just never really been able to factor that into the capital budget. And this was the year that, between the interest rates being what they are, which are still in our favor, this was really the year to kind of get that project on here. So, that's $11 million all by itself. If you take that off the top, now we're down to 34 million.
Just on that project, Controller, I just wanted to state, it's important to remember this pool facility is probably over 50 years old. There are tremendous amount of remediation initiatives that have to be done with the lake. In addition to that, this probably should have been done years ago, but there were other projects that pushed it out of the way, namely Liberal Clemente Park. That certainly needed to be done, and we have really done a remarkable job there. And to the commissioner and his entire team, anyone that goes there, if they feel like they're at a country club, the pool is beautiful, a brand new, spray park, sail shades and everything, and more to come. So the community, well, the entire town, because everyone from the town seems to move around and use the various pools, but the people that like to frequent Byron have been very, very patient. So we'd just like to say we've heard you, and this is finally going to be included.
Yep, like you said, long time in coming. So like I said, that brings us down to about 34 million. I love playing this game with counting down. So you guys just approved the $4 million increase for paving. So again, that's above and beyond the normal. And the reason, as we've all seen at the gas pumps, gas is more expensive these days. The asphalt that Commissioner Owens gets is all petroleum based. So as the gas prices go up, the cost for the asphalt goes up. And that's the reason why we needed that additional 4. Does not always happen. The 9 million he was originally given is usually where he lives, but we're not going to, the fear is that we won't be able to meet the commitments. That's why we had to add that extra 4 million on. Now, if we take that out, now we're down to 30 million. Included in that number that you guys have in front of you is $1.6 million for an expansion of a soccer field up at Casamento. Casamento, again, a project that has been probably a decade in the making. Longer? I apologize. I've only been here that long. And it's a project that required New York State cooperation with us because we needed an easement. It's up by the Southern State. There was all sorts of issues with it. So that's $1.6 million that's included. Again, it'll be a one-time thing, but if you bring that off, now it brings our overall budgeting number down to 28, only slightly higher than normal. And the reason why it's slightly higher than normal is because everything is more expensive now. At the last meeting back in March, you lovely folks approved a capital budget amendment for vehicles. We had to go from 120,000 to 150,000. That was just for 3 vehicles. The cost for everything has just gone up. So included in the numbers that you guys see before you is reflective of just expenses having gone up. Outside of those projects, it really kind of is a lot of the same meat and potatoes that we do every year. It's drainage, it's buying some equipment, it's getting new vehicles, it's improving facilities, all the stuff that our departments do year in, year out. That is my standard 50,000-foot view. By all means, if there's any question on a specific resolution, and there are 16 of them, so I'm hoping there's a few, by all means, here's your opportunity.
Thank you, Joe, for that overview. I think it's important to note that over the past number of years, there's been a willingness on the part of the town board to finally address some of the things, some of the capital projects that really should have been done years ago. Many of you may have noticed in passing town hall that for a number of months it was surrounded by scaffolding. Finally, the roof was replaced. Those that reside in this building have been the recipients of many flooded desks and papers and things. It's been a real chore. Also, the cupola. When they finally got up there to repair the cupola, we are so lucky that it didn't blow off and there wasn't a major accident. So these are the kinds of things that, you may not see right away, but really, I think, as the caretakers for the assets of the residents of this town of Islip, we have a responsibility to keep them the way they should be, just the way you take care of things around your house. And if you don't repair something today that costs $10, tomorrow it's going to cost $20. So I think the sooner, and as the controller said, the interest rates are still in our favor. The fact that we've had our AAA bond rating, the highest a municipality can get, reaffirmed now 6 times, we're in a good place.
Yes.
So, this is important to do.
Yeah, and to back up your point, when I started here in 2007, the budgets were already basically done. I believe my first capital budget, which was 2008, I think the budget was only 14 million. Like I said, our capital budgets now are always more than what we borrow because the plan in August is not always the plan that we need when we're here in May. Well, actually, we're in April. But the entire budget back then was about 14 million. So to your point, Supervisor, the assets have been neglected, the parks have been neglected, the roads have been neglected, facilities have been tremendously neglected. The rates are with us, with the board's permission and support, we're finally getting a lot of these things taken care of.
Thank you. Are there any questions on any of the specific projects or
Joe, heavy
globally?
vehicles, sorry, heavy vehicles townwide, $1 million twice. What's townwide? Is it DEC? Is it DPW?
I'd have to go back to look at the list. Most likely, it simplistically put, it's done by a different department. I'd have to look at the actual request as if it was DEC, Parks, or DPW. Could be any one of those 3.
So the generic term used just townwide for.
Correct. And it should be noted, again, everything, no offense to the lawyers in the world, but the lawyers have certain ways of making things very interesting. So in my viewpoint, a $30,000 vehicle is not a heavy vehicle, but according to the law, yes, it is. So a few years ago, when we were able to get lots of vehicles under $30,000, so we had light and heavy, we're really going to start to steer away from anything light because there's nothing that we really buy outside of some equipment that's going to be under that dollar threshold. When I reached out to bond counsel, because I couldn't believe that was the number, he didn't know how long it had been on the books. In his opinion, he did not see it changing anytime soon.
Joe, you're not going anywhere, right? I mean, for now, because I'm going to ask my
Depends what
questions.
you're about to say.
I'm going to ask my questions individually as we work through the 16 bond resolution. So don't go anywhere.
I'm here, sir.
All right.
Did you bring a snack?
I don't have a lot. That's
Okay, let us move forward then. The first bond resolution authorizes the construction of road improvements for the town of Islip, and I think we saw some examples tonight. Are there any questions? This is for 13.5.
Right.
Any questions? Motion and roll call vote on the bond.
make a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilwoman Mullen. Roll call on the vote.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Aye.
Councilman Guadrone.
Aye.
Councilman Cochran.
Yay.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The second bond resolution is for the athletic facility improvements at $700,000. Are there any questions?
I have one question. Joe, when this first came to us, when it was first presented to me on Friday, it was 5.7.
Yes,
Now it's not.
that's the magic I do, sir. I dropped that number there.
Oh, you're just such a magician. the $5 million that was taken out is to account for the resolution passed earlier, number 43, the town's SLFRF funds. So we're doing those same improvements, but we're doing them with the ARPA funds and not bonding. Is that correct?
Correct, and the reality is we're actually spending, I think, close to 6.25 on turf fields.
Yeah.
So it's more than what was even requested in the budget, and with that available funds, it allowed the Commissioner of Recreation to expand what he was going to do.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second. A second by Councilman O'Connor. Roll call on the vote.
Councilman Cochran.
Yay.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilman Guadrone.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The third bond resolution authorizes construction of park improvements. Those are townwide park improvements, $750,000. Any questions? Hearing none, motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilwoman Mullen, second by Councilman Cochran. Roll call on the vote.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Aye.
Councilman Cochran.
Yay.
Councilman Guadrone.
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Okay, the fifth bond resolution authorizes,
Fourth,
oh, I'm sorry. The fourth bond resolution authorizes the intersection improvements, $350,000. Any questions? I'll make that motion. Second. A second by Councilman O'Connor. Roll call on the vote.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Yes.
Councilman Guadrone.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Yes.
Councilman Cochran.
Yay.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The fifth bond resolution authorizes the installation of security and fire alarm systems.
Just one question, Joe. When we had gone over this, you had mentioned that the locations are going to be prioritized by the Commissioner of Public Safety, so that we could probably do a lot more than this, but we're going to prioritize where we're going to be able to do our security alarms and our fire alarm systems in terms of a risk-benefit analysis as to where we have the most exposure, and that's how we're going to use this money. Is that the way?
That would be my understanding, yes.
What, excuse me, what is the dollar amount of this?
600,000.
Any other questions? Motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second
Second.
by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor, roll call on the vote.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Aye.
Councilman Guadrone.
Aye.
Councilman Cochran.
Yay.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. The sixth bond resolution authorizes the acquisition of heavy-duty vehicles and equipment. That's 3.625. Any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second. Second by Councilman O'Connor. All the, roll call on the vote.
Councilman O'Connor. Councilman Cochran.
Yay.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilman Guadrone.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Yes.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, the seventh bond resolution authorizes the acquisition of boats for use by the town. That's 40,000. Roll call on the vote.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilman
Second.
O'Connor, second by Councilman Guadrone. Roll call.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilman Guadrone.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Yes.
Councilman Cochran.
Yes.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The next bond resolution is for the construction of parking lot improvements. And that too is something that traditionally was not done until a few years ago, and certainly we've got parking lots that need repair. And that's for 1.25.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran. Yes.
Joe, when indicated to me, you had been in discussion with the supervisor, the Commissioner of DPW, indicating that this was targeted for the back lots in Bay Shore.
That is my understanding, yes.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have
John made the motion.
John made the motion, second by Councilman O'Connor. Roll call on the vote.
Councilman Cochran.
Yay.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilman Guadrone.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Yes.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, the next bond resolution is for construction of asphalt improvements, 250,000. Any questions? Motion.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Mullen, second
Second.
by Councilman Cochran. Roll call on the vote.
Councilwoman Mullen,
Yes.
Councilman Cochran,
Yay.
Councilman Goodrow,
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor,
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The 10th bond resolution is for the Casamento Park Soccer Field improvements, 1.6, and there is a contributing contribution of 300, right.
Motion.
Motion by
We're going to do the
Councilman.
motion to
Approve.
approve and adopt a negative declaration.
Close.
No, approve the bond
Approve the
resolution
bond resolution.
and adopt the negative declaration.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman O'Connor on the motion, on the bond roll call.
Councilman Cochran,
Yay.
Councilman O'Connor,
Aye.
Councilman Goodrow,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mullen,
Yes.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Next, bond resolution is for various purposes, immediate improvements townwide. That's for 7.825.
And this, Joe, I did have a question on. So when we briefed on this, you had thought that the list that you had provided as the backup for this bond resolution was going to change. In other words, change reflecting downward. You pointed out to me specifically replacement of a phone system that had already been replaced. I noticed that that's no longer on the list, but the number on the bond resolution remains the same at 7.825, but the list only lists 6.365, so I'm confused.
You may not have the most recent updated resolution.
How about everybody else?
I'm with Councilman O'Connor.
That I was given a second round of resolutions today. I had a very difficult time negotiating the old ones versus the new ones. Most of them are still on my desk, but, or all over my office, but I
So what is the correct amount?
I would have to add it all up. It's
the list adds it up as 6.365.
Oh, so it's
Schedule,
just a heading on the resolution?
yes, Schedule 1.
Schedule 1 is the detail with the proper projects and the proper dollar amounts. I'm not going to lie.
However, the bond document,
Blame Hawkins. Don't take any of this yourself, Joe. It's all on Hawkins.
the bond document, page 2, says 7.825, so that needs to be amended. If, in fact, the
6.365.
365 number is correct.
What is the new number?
6.365.
6.3.
If the Schedule I that I'm looking at, or 1, is correct.
Yes.
And is correct. So the motion then has to be changed to reflect the total amount.
Make a motion to amend the resolution to reflect the amount of 6.365.
65.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Councilman O'Connor,
Make a motion to adopt the resolution.
second by Councilwoman Mullen. Roll call on the vote.
Councilman
bond.
O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mullen,
Aye.
Councilman Goodrow,
Aye.
Councilman Cochran,
Yay.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously as amended.
thank you.
Thank
The
you,
12th
Councilman O'Connor,
yes.
for pointing that out. That's significant.
I'm not good with numbers, I apologize.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
The
you
12th
don't do
bond
that.
resolution.
You ain't the rookie.
The 12th bond resolution is for construction of sidewalk improvements, 800,000. Any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Guadrone, second
Second.
by Councilman Cochran. All those in favor? I mean, roll call on the vote, I'm sorry.
Councilman Goodrow,
Aye.
Councilman Cochran,
Yay.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mullen,
Yes.
and Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. The 13th bond resolution is construction of drainage improvements, 2 million. Oh my God, there are so many spots around town, north, south, and it's interesting, it's not just the low-lying areas on the south, shore of the town, but in areas up north too, we've got some drainage issues, perennial. So glad we're addressing them. Okay, are there any questions on this? Then I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilman Cochran, second
Second.
by Councilwoman Mullen. Roll call on the bond.
Councilman Cochran,
Yay.
Councilwoman Mullen,
Yes.
Councilman Guadron,
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor,
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
That takes us to the 14th bond resolution, construction of improvements to town facilities, and that's 1.65 million. Any questions on these? Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second
Second.
by Councilman Cochran. Roll call on the bond.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilman Cochran.
Yay.
Councilman Guadron.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next bond resolution is for construction of various improvements at Byron Lake Park. That's for 11.5 million. Are there any questions?
Make a motion that we issue a negative declaration and move the resolution for its adoption.
Motion by Councilman O'Connor,
I'll second that.
second by Councilwoman Mullen. Roll call on the bond.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Aye.
Councilman Guadron.
Yes.
Councilman Cochran.
Yay.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The final and 16th bond resolution is for preparation of plans and specifications for building immediate, and that is 500,000.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman O'Connor. Roll call on the bond.
Councilman Cochran.
Yay.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilman Guadron.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Yes.
Supervisor Carpenter.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
and thank you. That takes us, we will continue with the refunding bond resolutions.
Aye.
Hi. Just what we're doing here so that everyone's aware.
Yeah, so this is real simple. The concept is easy. It's just like when we go to refinance our mortgages at home. However, in the government world, we can't just do simple refinancing. We have to wait until our bonds are callable. These are in relation to our bonds that we issued in 2013, which are now callable. And the interest rate that the market is currently showing is going to generate somewhere between $100,000 to $120,000 worth of savings. Just to show how the rates are changing, this same refinancing 4 weeks ago would have saved us close to $150,000. The rates have been starting to creep up. We are still in a savings position. So I am of the opinion that we should still do everything we can to save the money. So it's not as big as the sponsor's memo had mentioned, but that's because the rates have been shifting.
Mhm.
But that's basically what we're doing. We're not extending the life of the debt. We are not taking on more debt. We are just refinancing so that our debt service payments going forward for the next 5 years will be less.
Great.
Joe, just one question.
The Sponsor's memo mentions 162. You said the number's lower. Is that an annual number or a cumulative number? It says
Cumulative over the course of the.
over the course of 5 years.
Yep.
I just have a question as far as, you talk about changing rates. When would the rate be effective upon our vote, or is it going to,
When
No,
we go to market to sell.
okay.
that's
So
why you're
if-
going to run out the door, call them up.
If it turns out that when we're actually ready to go to market, that the rates are not where they need to be, then we just would not act upon it.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
We always have that option to kind of get out before we're stuck into a bad position.
Thank you. Do we need a roll call on the refunding?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I have a motion. I'll make that motion to refund.
Second.
Second by Councilman Cochran. Roll call on the vote.
Supervisor
bond.
Carpenter.
Yes.
Councilman Cochran.
Yay.
Councilman Guadron.
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mullen.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And thanks for all your work on that. Oh, he disappeared. He's running to call bond counsel. Next is the appointment of Ronald Devine as a member of the Islip Housing Authority Board. It's a volunteer position. Ron served in that capacity many years ago. Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman Guadrone. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Next is the authorization for supervisor to enter into a professional service agreement with Cash and Associates PC to perform a technical analysis at the Shellfish Culture Facility at the East Islip Marina. Any questions? Hearing none. Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilman Guadrone. All those in favor? Opposed? Approved. Item 49, authorization for supervisor to execute a contract DPD 1-22 Roberto Clemente Skate Park with Laser Industries. Councilman Guadrone, do you have any good news for me?
Not at this moment.
Okay. All right. We're going to have to table this resolution. When the bids went out, again, with everything going up, the bids came in higher than we had appropriated funds for. We are waiting to hear from the state attorney general. The town attorney and outside counsel, working in partnership with the attorney general's office years ago, commenced a lawsuit against those that had been dumping in the park. We were successful in the lawsuit. We're waiting for the distribution of those funds. And we're actually, I think right now they're over $700,000. And part of the initiatives that the community kind of, in many, many meetings that we had, embraced was the construction of a skate park, among bathrooms and other things at the park. So that was on the list, and we're basically waiting for the AG's office to, and that was the last conversation I had with council, that they're waiting for them to agree that, yes, that is appropriate since it was on their list. So hopefully that will be coming forward. I mean, I'm willing to convene a special meeting if we get that, that notice. So in the meantime, I'll make that motion to table. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor? Opposed? The resolution is tabled. Item 50, the final item on the agenda tonight is the appointment of Ella Doconal to the position of Commissioner of the Town of Islip Department of Planning and Development. Ms. Doconal's credentials are absolutely impeccable. Member of the New York State Planning Association and a million other things. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second
Second.
by Councilman Mullen. All those in favor? Opposed? Disapproved. Thank you so much. And since there is no other business to appear before us, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Councilman O'Connor, second
Second.
by Councilman Mullen. All those in favor? Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.